What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emory and Kam. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be doing our 2025 bold predictions for the NFL football season. Cam and me do not have conversation about these prior, but last year we had a very similar pick. I don't know if y'all remember, if y'all were watching the show at that point, but we both had a prop on Jamar Chase. Mine was that he was going to be the Triple Crown winner, as he was. And I believe yours was 1,500 plus yards and 100 plus touchdowns or something, or 100 plus catches or something like that. That'd be crazy, nice. Right? But yeah, so.
Yeah, I think statistically he kind of fell short because I put out the 20 touchdowns.
He
got
20
17,
touchdowns.
So
Right.
I'm sorry for not nailing that. But we basically, without talking or discussing, he was our guy, and he ended up being, the number one skill player in football last year, number one fantasy player, and all that good stuff. Had a couple others that either went way wrong or just weren't applicable because of injury or stuff like that. We were discussing before we jumped on that it was a lot harder to kind of come away with four.
Yeah.
My four are more generalistic. Some are fantasy relevant, some are standings relevant. I know last year you kind of built yours more so on finding good value on props and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm assuming you might kind of follow suit with that. It'll be fun to discuss. So we each have four, like you said, and I'd say let's just kind of get into it.
Yeah. So first up, so I started off kind of slow on purpose. We're gonna build. Okay. But the first one is going to be that the Bengals will end up as the number one scoring offense and the number 32 scoring defense. So first place on offense, last place on defense. Obviously, I don't think this is a crazy thought because you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, who was the Triple Crown winner, T. Higgins, hopefully healthy, Chase Brown, who has solidified his role finally, because last year we were not short. So that offense is very good, very talented. But then on defense, we have the Trey Hendrickson situation where it's bad vibes, one of the worst secondaries in football currently, and also the ability to not be able to stop the run. So if you have the worst secondary and you can't stop the run and you can't get sacks because you're not going to pay your guy, it just feels like 32nd makes a lot of sense. Last year, they came pretty close actually to this, but they were still, better mid-20s on defense and then 9th on offense. So I think that they even take a bigger step forward now that everybody's solidified and everybody's healthy on offense and defense. And then defense is a crazy crapshoot over there. So that's why I think that's
I think that's a fun one. Actually, funny enough, one of mine that I was trying to build the story or the narrative of it is I was thinking of what is the highest points per game allowed all time by a team that made the playoffs.
Right.
And by simple Googles and data points and stuff like that, it's just difficult to kind of dig up all that information. So I didn't want to include that because I was just taking way too long to find it. But yeah, I was thinking of something very, very similar. And obviously, if they're going to be a playoff team and have success this season, unbeknownst to the last one, it's going to be having to outscore teams and be in the 38-35 shootouts. We're basically going to play that game every single week in fantasy. So it's that one definitely should come into fruition or have a good shot to at least.
And also, if you're just talking about fantasy, Jamar Chase is the number one overall player. Mm-hmm. T. Higgins is going at the 2-3 turn. Joe Burrow is getting pushed up because you kind of have to. And now Chase Brown is a second rounder. He was a third rounder. Now he's a second rounder. So you're just getting all of the guys that are going to make this offense go in those first, 3-4 rounds.
And then Mason Tinsley. I don't know if you watched
that. Was crazy. He was having a game.
He's scoring 2 touchdowns in 13 seconds.
Yeah, he had a game last night.
They're looking for somebody to fill the Tyler Boyd role that when he left 2 seasons prior, they drafted Jermaine Burton, and that was not or at least has not been a hit so far. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like he's kind of pushing his way down the depth chart. So Tinsley, you bring in a Noah Fant,
Yoshi Voss,
Yoshi, you got Mike Gesicki, you re-signed Tanner Hudson, was a showdown love for us. So a lot of paths, and then Taj Brooks, who everybody's pushing up like Ja'Cory Cross-Country Merritt in the same game. Taj Brooks looked much better, and he's just kind of solidified himself as the RB2. And when Chase Brown does go down, he should still kind of put up just as well of production.
Absolutely. Okay, let's hear your first one.
Yeah, so my first one is a fantasy one. Basically, last year's receiving wide receiver class in 2024 was historically great. And we had some awesome seasons, and that's just kind of really flipped the ADPs upside down. And I think from 2024's draft class, because of the huge seasons by Malik Neighbors, BTJ, Lad McConkey, I'm not even including Brock Bowers in this, but just those three all being first or second round picks, cornerstones of wide receiver ones,
Right.
all top 12.
Yeah.
Well, Rome, you had Xavier Worthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., either had inconsistent or underwhelming because of their situations.
Right.
And they're all going behind them by at least around 2 or even 3, depending on the format that you're in. My take is Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Xavier Worthy will cumulatively outscore each of the 3 of Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, and Malik Neighbors in fantasy points in 2025.
Okay. No, I can see it. You talk about offenses that are good, just in that situation. Lad is in a situation where they don't throw the ball very much.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Thomas is playing for a team that has a new head coach in Emory and Kam. Not sure if Trevor is ever going to take the step forward that we think he could. So that could be a situation. And now there's a number 2 option that might, take in some targets. And then you have Neighbors, who is in the worst situation possibly in fantasy for, just like touchdown upside, because playing for the Giants, they have the hardest schedule, and we'll get into schedules, the predictions and stuff coming up this week, but they have the hardest schedule in football. They might win 3, 4, 5 games, and touchdown equity is just not there. So those all make sense. But now you go to the other side. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are, Caleb Johnson, right? But those two are going to be pushing that Bears offense. Rome is going to be increased. Xavier Worthy is on the Chiefs, where Rashee Rice is going to get a suspension in the middle of the year. And then you have Marvin Harrison, who has been awesome in camp. And I think Arizona is hopefully going to just draw plays up for this guy because he's so good at football.
Yeah, so I agree. And you kind of walked right through how my thought process was. Basically, Malik Neighbors just at cost, we're just kind of preferring others because of the lack of touchdown upside. We don't think he's, got the 12 plus touchdown upside that would warrant being a first round pick. But at the same time, he's also kind of been out with an injury for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and we're getting kind of close. So it's not like I'm concerned about him missing time, but it's just one of those things where targeting people who are already banged up going to the season, a lot of times, more often than not, don't really pan out.
Sure.
BTJ and Lad both, like you said, added target competition. Wide receiver 2s in Travis Hunter and Keenan Allen obviously returned to the Chargers. Neither of them highly volatile passing situations that maybe they're already drafted at where the peak is of their spot. Whereas
right, for sure.
Marvin, they didn't really add anybody to his competition. They just hope that a second year and second offseason with Kyler and in that offense will improve his ability to produce.
Right.
And Rome, beat writers saying that he's the biggest winner of Chicago's training camp right now. Big path of, and I've said this even on best ball streams, of him possibly exceeding or passing up DJ Moore as a wide receiver 1 in the offense with or without an injury. And then, like I said, with Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice being suspended in the middle of the season, not at the beginning, I think is a big win for him. A lot of people have not really talked him up and pushed him down and risen up Rashee prior to the suspension news. But at the same time, everybody brings up, this is what Rashee did at the end of his season when Xavier wasn't there. But when Xavier was there and Rashee was out, because Rashee was there or was not available, that doesn't count. And it's the same exact thing. They basically put up similar numbers, even though they are different types of receivers.
Of course.
But I've also seen and heard a lot of things of Kansas City making it a priority to have the big plays return to this offense that's kind of been omitted over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And if there is going to be somebody that benefits from that, it's going to be your speedy guy that you like to get the ball fast.
Absolutely. No, I think talent-wise, if you just talk about the 3 groupings, we had Marvin Harrison as our number 1 overall player. We had Rome as our number 3 overall wide receiver. Malik, of course, was 2, but if you're just comparing across the board, Xavier was the lowest, but he's in the best opportunity for him to succeed out of all the players. So I think that's a great pick. I didn't even think about that, but I actually did one, and we'll talk about it probably after your next one, that has some rookie and positional implications.
Cool.
But
all right, let's go to number 2 for each of ours.
Yeah, so my next one is Josh Allen leads the league in rushing touchdowns. Basically, Josh Allen has averaged 9.229 touchdowns per season. In 2023, he had 15 rushing touchdowns. He tied with Jalen Hurts, but he lost the title to Raheem Mostert, who came out of nowhere and had 18 touchdowns. In 2024, this last year, he had 12 rushing touchdowns, but on the same team, you had James Cook, who had 16. I have regression written all over James Cook. I think that that's a not a surprise. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that, but someone has to score the touchdowns. I think Josh Allen has 16 plus rushing touchdown upside this year. Of course, that makes me wish I had a little bit more of him in best ball, sure. But I think that because of the style of how they play, he is the driving force. It's not like they have a great receiver room by any means in the league. And James Cook with the holdout and everything, it just feels uncomfortable. I think Josh Allen scores 16 plus touchdowns, gets them into the playoffs because of him just willing them to do it again.
Right. And yeah, what we did so well early in the summer, even as we just started best ball, one of the first points that we were just lock and step with was just James Cook natural regression. I mean, he had 207 touches, 16 rushing touchdowns, and still didn't even average 17 points a game.
Right.
In terms of fantasy points. And Josh Allen, like you said, he is basically foolproof as a fantasy player. And we know that Buffalo is going to be a contender. It's going to be everything. He's going to have, if you want to talk usage, have the highest percentage of usage among any other quarterback. If you talk passing plus rushing upside, I know Lamar can do his thing, but he also has a 2,000-yard back.
Right, exactly.
Standing right behind him. You have Joe Burrow, but he's got these elite all-pro-esque receivers next to him. So with Josh having to do it all, I think that's one of those things. And if he is going to truly get over the hump this year with Kansas City seemingly vulnerable now, I think I like that take.
Perfect. All right, let's hear your second one.
All right, second one is this is kind of similar to one I did last year. It kind of was not applicable because Dak went down with an injury. But last year I said Dallas was going to miss the playoffs after a loss in the final regular season finale to Washington and underwhelm after 3 straight 12-5 seasons. Obviously went down, but Washington was kind of like a half point for getting it right.
Yeah.
Well, this year I'm even more pessimistic about my own team. And so since 2004, outside of injuries to like a significant injury to Tony Romo or Dak Prescott, they have not had a losing record. Every single year has been 8-8 or better, with the exception of broken collarbones, torn hamstrings, broken legs, all that good stuff. This year, even with a Dak Prescott fully healthy season, Dallas will finish last place in the NFC East for the first time since 2004 with a loss to the Giants at the end of the season.
Okay.
And that also kind of correlates, if you want to talk rarity, this will be the first time there's a repeat winner in the NFC East since that very same season where Philly repeated, which that's not necessarily bold, but it's bold enough considering it's been 22 years now.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely get it. I think the problem, I don't know if I can put them at last, but I don't think they're going to the playoffs. Like, I agree with that part, because I just think that this team has too many issues defensively and the like Jerry Jones like talking too much kind of thing going on. I think there's really bad vibes, and I think we talk about bad vibes on here because I don't think people take that into consideration enough. If I looked at on paper, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty solid team, but their offensive line isn't doing well. They already have injuries. Tyler Guyton's got an injury. Defense, you have Micah's issue. You have Trayvon Diggs, who's injured. Like, I completely get where you're coming from. I don't know I can put them in last because like we said earlier, the Giants have the worst schedule in football, and it's really hard for me to see them. I guess basically it's a race for last at that point. You know what I mean?
It is tough, and I think actually both teams will be 6-7 win teams.
Yeah, they'll be around the same.
It's not like both of them are going to be 3-14 vying for the first overall pick. But I just think both of them will. I just like at least the Giants, you at least have the identity of what they are.
Sure.
Dallas, there is no identity other than we're just going to play from behind and throw it to CD and George, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all they have. Bad coaching staff because it's 1-year rentals, all that stuff. At least the Giants, I know it's an ugly thing. They still have a top 3 defensive line in football. And that is a huge anchor that you can upset some teams. And on top of that, I know Russell Wilson is not something to be excited about, even Drew Lock, whether or not he plays this season. But if you only have to score about 20 points to win, half your games, that's something that is completely on the board, and they have a path of surprising some teams in certain spots, and that's why I like them. Dallas is just bottom 10 offensive line now. Also, Tyler Guyton being banged up to come into the year, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that helps or hurts them being without because he
Sure.
was so bad. Defensive line was one of the worst in football, but Micah, even though he was out, and that was a huge reason behind it, I don't even know what's going on there. They are just pressing for need at corner because of so many injuries right now, and worst running back room in football. So all of those things, bad coach. I just don't like anything about them right now.
Yeah,
The
sure.
Giants, at least I can hang on. I like Brian Daboll as a coach. At least Russell Wilson did return to at least lead a team into a 10
Yeah,
win playoff season.
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe they won't be the worst team in football, and you can at least bank on that. Running back room serviceable
Yeah.
with Tyron Tracy. We like Cam Scatterboo. Malik Neighbors is an elite wide receiver to basically cancel out what CD you would expect to happen. And then defensively, like I said, front seven, front four. When you have a top three unit of something of importance like offensive line, defensive line, skill group, quarterback, head coach, it's hard to find yourself at dead last in your own spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of one of those things that when I'm thinking about the Giants.
Well, defensively, I think that you're spot on. Defensive line is great, but I actually think their secondary is actually pretty good. And they're really young, but they played really well, and they brought Javon Holland in. They put Paulson Adebo in.
Yep.
So I think their defense is really ready. The biggest question mark for the Giants will always be with this whole thing is quarterback. But at the end of the day, like you said, Russell Wilson, he's
biggest thing,
average quarterback, and he's fine.
The biggest thing that'll come down to with this prediction is just Dallas is trending down, Giants are trending up, and will they cross paths at all this season? I think they eventually will, but whether it happens this season or not remains to be seen.
Sure. Okay, so my third one will be 5 rookie running backs will have 1,000 yards, 1,000 rushing yards, and so I just want to put some names out there. Ashton Genty, he's actually projected for 1,074 yards already by Underdog, so he's projected to go over.
There's a lot of rushing props for rookies that are pretty.
Exactly. Emory and Hampton, 875. So that could happen on Underdog. Travion Henderson, he's at 700. So, and we've seen Travion and everybody, he's the massive riser on everything. Quinshon Judkins, if he does get back in time, I think he could be a name that we have in our hat. RJ Harvey, sure. I don't think JK makes it through the whole season, so RJ might actually take on some rushing upside. Caleb Johnson at Pittsburgh. Cam Scatterbo, if he comes back and he just is better than Tyron Tracy and usurps him. Jaden Blue, because Dallas has the worst rushing.
If Rico Dowdle
that's exactly what I was going to say. Rico Dowdle had 1,000 yards last year. Why can't Jaden Blue?
Right.
And then if you just talk about handcuffs, what happens if Kyron Williams goes down and Jarquez Hunter takes over? What happens if Jonathan Taylor goes down, DJ Giddens takes over? Ollie Gordon for a Devin Achane who's already injured. Yeah, because he's over Jalen Wright. Taj Brooks in Cincinnati, who we just talked about, because Chase Brown, it's Taj Brooks immediately. And then JCM, Bill Krosky Merritt from Washington, taking over in Washington when Brian Robinson goes. So why not 5? Maybe 6, but I couldn't put 6 on here. That would be a stretch.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm completely on board with that. We've been talking for a year and a half now. Even since we started this podcast, how good this rookie running back class was going to be. And it was just all going to come down to situation and where people landed. Because like even Dylan Sampson, you didn't even mention him, but if Quinshon's out, everything applies to him.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's harder to dissect.
He had 1,400 yards last year at Tennessee, so why not?
Yeah, so there's so many names, and I know you didn't call the shot on specific ones. You could probably infer who we would probably project to be the one candidates to do it. But I mean, there was a historically great production from rookie pass catchers last year. So following up the year after with historical production from rookie running backs. I remember specifically 2017. I think there were 7 rookie running backs that finished in the top 25.
Yes.
In terms of fantasy total points. And I could see that being exceeded this year with how just wide open it is, RB2 down, and how it feels like there's just a resurgence at the position. And I actually have a prediction, not necessarily of rookies, but the running back position as a whole for the NFL and how it'll, really kind of turn the NFL how we've kind of seen it over the last couple of years.
Maybe they'll get paid better. Let's
Possibly.
hear your running back.
I'll actually
prediction.
move to that one instead, since
Okay,
I
perfect.
did mention running back. So, like we said, there's been a lot of it's been wide receivers pushed off the board. When I first started fantasy football, it was like running back,
Right.
2 receivers at the end, maybe Rob Gronkowski, and that's it.
Mhm.
Now it's more so a 50-50 split, or actually more receivers going off the board in the first round compared to running backs, even after a season where running backs were much more reliable than the top receivers.
Absolutely.
This year, what I will be proclaiming is, for the first time since 2006, that is 20 fantasy seasons, there will be 6 running backs to finish with 300 plus fantasy points from a PPR perspective.
Okay.
So,
do you have names?
So I did write down 6 names.
Okay, perfect.
I was nervous about the 6th one.
Okay.
But then on the drive here, we got news, and I feel better about one.
Yes, of course. So, let's hear it.
Bijan Robinson. None of these are too bold, but Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Genty, Chase Brown, and Jonathan Taylor. Those are going to be the 6 names that I proclaim will be the 300 plus yard or 300 plus fantasy point producers.
Okay.
That leaves off names like Jahmyr Gibbs and Bucky Irving and Devon Achane. High names that are really.
Did you say Genty?
Genty is part of my
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
But those 3 names, just as an example, Derrick Henry, another example of high names that are going in the top 2 rounds that I didn't mention. All I need is 6 for my bold prediction, and for this to be the first time since 2006 for that to take place. I almost went as bold as going to 2003 when there were 7. I almost said it was going to match to that production, but I didn't want to be too bold, because it is a rarity. There's only been one occasion in that sample size that somebody had 5, and I think that was 2019.
Okay.
There were a couple seasons that there were 4.
So PPR?
Yeah, PPR wise.
Okay, so last year, Jahmyr Gibbs had 362, Saquon had 355, Bijan had 341, Derrick Henry had 336.
And Devon Achane had 299.
299, exactly. So I was going to say that just to put in perspective that last year we only had 4. Now almost 5, and Josh Jacobs got to 293, so almost 6.
Pretty close.
But at the same time, there are some big names that you didn't even mention that could have a chance. So I'm very excited.
Honestly, there's always breakouts and surprises as well. I mean, Josh Jacobs has a clear defined path to doing something of that nature. Kyron Williams, the same thing. You're basically looking for guys that have either all the workload to get 15 plus touchdowns, or have all the receiving work upside to have at least 50 plus catches. And then, like those 2 guys, Emory and Hampton, we're high on if he does have all the workload. There's just Kenneth Walker, somebody that I've really been in love with all summer. If he stays healthy, the path is there for a lot of those guys. Just need 6 to happen. I'm calling my shot on the 6 that I mentioned: Bijan, Saquon, CMC, GT, Chase Brown, and JT. But at the same time, if other people exceed that 300 point mark, I'm not going to be shocked either.
Of course. Well, let's go on to the next one.
All right.
So I have 1 left. And we did 4 last year. We were talking about doing 5 this year, but it was much harder.
Yeah.
I think I could have found 5 last year. This year, it's a little bit more difficult. My 4th one is the Denver Broncos will have the best regular season record in the AFC. Okay. No one wants to hear this, right? My mom will, because my mom is a Broncos fan. I'm a Raiders fan. This is not what I want to hear, of course, when I do this myself. But their win total is 9.5, so right in the middle. Offense last year was 19th. Defense was 7th overall. Strength of schedule this year is going to be 15th. But I believe in Sean Payton. Now, last season, this Broncos team we were talking about as being a 4-win terrible team. I mean, I remember we were sitting in the other room in those little chairs, and y'all probably have not seen those videos, but those are old videos where we were really talking them down, because there was $85 million in cap hit that went to Russell Wilson. Well, now they used that money to sign players
after just 1 season.
Yeah, Dre Greenlaw, Hufunga, the safety, Evan Ingram came in. They're upgrading at positions. And now you have this defense that already played above themselves and were 7th overall. You had Nick Bonito come out as a breakout. You had Pat Surtain go ahead and be the defensive player of the year. Why not? Right? Offensively, you had Bo Nix, who had a great season, but they're all growing together, in my opinion, because you had young guys. You had Marvin Mims, you had Devon Bailey, you had Troy Franklin. They re-sign a Cortland Sutton as the veteran in the room,
Mm-hmm.
They go out and they're one of the most stable offensive lines in football by far, in my opinion. I think this offensive line maybe not doesn't have like a first team All Pro, but they have a bunch of above average players across the board. And then they added two running backs. You got J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey for a 1-2 punch. It's a very Sean Payton-esque type. You've seen it, Jamal Williams and Kamara before,
Right.
And then the schedule. I think the AFC West is difficult, but otherwise, outside of their AFC West games, I don't think it's that hard. So no holes, a reasonable schedule, a coach that I know I can trust after last year. I got them going 13-4.
Yeah, that's a really fun one. I mean, to me, I would view them as a top 2, borderline number 1 defense in football because of the fact that they're just so stout everywhere.
Right.
Like their worst unit rank is 11th at linebacker, which linebacker probably the least impactful. Top 5 in terms of defensive line or front 4, and then number 3 secondary. I think that actually could be arguably number 1 with how
and adding Jahdae Barron and don't forget, like they did draft a guy that
and
fell.
the true weakness, because they were also top 3 offensive line, like you mentioned, in football last year. Receiver was probably their weakest spot to target, or biggest question mark, I would say currently. Troy Franklin is having one of the best camps out of all of these late round sleepers and stuff like that, somebody that we were high on. But they also drafted Pat Bryant, who was really good. Devon Bailey had some flashes. Cortland Sutton is still there. Marvin Mims, everybody wants to push up. So they're at least 5 deep at having impactful skill players. And maybe it's not just you have these standard set 2 guys to hit 1,000 yards like most people typically operate. If you got 5 or 6 guys capable of having 600 plus receiving yards, like that's a lethal unit.
Yep.
My biggest thing would be just believing whether or not Bo Nix might have some kind of regression that we saw similar to CJ Stroud, where it seemed like Houston came out of nowhere and doubled their win total, and as a rookie went to the playoffs and stuff. And year later, it felt like Houston was on the cusp of being one of those true contenders, and we were kind of like, you just got to break through. And obviously they did take a step back, and now we just kind of view them differently.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Denver might be a similar path, or are we just going to continue just strapping this rocket ship to the back and just kind of go all in with these takes?
I think also a big thing about, and I know that it's similar, a little different, of course, with the Houston take. I think that when you have such a good offensive line and defensive line pairing, it makes it okay, because that's where I think you win football games at the end of the day. Their offensive line has been so good, and without injury, they're one of the top 10 offensive lines just by talent across the board. They do, of course, play above themselves, like I've said, but I just think I'm in on this team because of Sean Payton and what he's capable of doing and how he brought a team up. I don't think that the Houston Texans, not that I'm not saying D'Amico's not a good coach, but he's also a defensive minded coach. He's not going to help push a sophomore rookie or a sophomore quarterback up. And I'm a believer in going lower on sophomore quarterbacks normally.
Right.
But I also know that Bo Nix is 25 years old. It's one thing when you're a sophomore and you come out and you're like Drake May, where it's like, hey, you're 21 when you come into the, or like Caleb Williams, they're 21 when they come to the league. They're 22 in their sophomore season. And then everybody has a film on them, and it's like, hey, you're probably going to take a regression. Now, I don't know that we're thinking that with those 2 guys, but just in general.
Right.
Now you have a Bo Nix who's the same age as the CJ Stroud. So I think that would be my pushback. But at the same time, I completely understand where you're coming from. I believe in this team because of their defense, their O-line, and I believe their skill players will get better.
They're my favorite roster in the NFL.
Exactly.
And I've said that we both said that for a couple months
when
now.
the draft, we didn't know what to do with them.
Exactly, because we're just like, you need nothing.
Yeah,
but
you're just good.
Add, and it is what it is. But either way, really like them. I've said before that, like the Raiders, your team, they would be my pick to win the NFC South if they were in that division,
of
because
course.
like they're the best last place team in my eyes. If Denver was in the NFC, I think they would be my Super Bowl to go all the way. The problem is just putting them in front of Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, which are consensus top 4 teams in football. That's a big ask, even if you do have the regular season to back it up.
Of course.
basically the path to do that is you have to run the table and have them come through Mile High. I would. It's just kind of hard to see if they do have the successful season, but then have to go on the road to any of those places, still find a way to win those games. I would love to see it. It would be refreshing. It would be awesome. Love it for Sean Payton. I've always kind of enjoyed Denver growing up. So, yeah, I really like their team, and I like that take.
Okay. And your last one, let's hear it.
All right, last one. Let's talk about 4 former number 1 overall picks. So we're talking Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, and Caleb Williams.
Okay.
There's a correlation because of the fact that Liam Cohen now, last year's Baker Mayfield OC, on the way to be Jacksonville's head coach.
Of course.
You have Ben Johnson, the OC for Chicago.
Of course.
The head coach now for Chicago was Jared Goff's OC. Each of the last 2 seasons, Baker and Jared Goff finished top 10 in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and fantasy points. Last year, they were both top 5 in all of those categories.
Right.
This year, Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence, their perception now, because they've had slower starts to their career that people would really warrant, are going as QB2s, not really getting pushed up boards in terms of fantasy, best ball, or anything. Each of them will finish top 8 in all 3 of those passing categories, en route to leading both of their teams to the postseason.
So Trevor and Caleb will finish top 8 in those.
Top 8 in passing yards,
I'm not against
passing touchdowns, and fantasy points as a quarterback. And then also Jaguars and Chicago Bears will both lead their teams to the playoffs.
Well, I guess you'll have to see our record prediction if I agree with that part. But I think that's a good thought. I think that adding Travis Hunter, adding Liam Cohen, a new stylistic offense where you are going to be throwing the ball to the backs and hopefully a lot, and getting going. I think Brenton Strange just looked great in camp. So Trevor Lawrence has the talent around him. Caleb Williams has more talent even on his team. So DJ Moore and Rome and then of course DeAndre Swift is a pass catching back. So I think that's a great take. Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, don't forget those guys. But I think that's a really good take. I think that I'm trying to think of 6 quarterbacks that would have to not would only be in there with them. But I think,
But basically, a lot of people, unless there's an injury to go down,
right,
having
of course,
the top of Jaden Daniels.
Josh, Jalen, Joe, Pat, and
Lamar.
And Lamar, yeah.
So, having those 6, unless theirs goes down, they're top 6. And so you're fighting for the final 2. And lately, that's been Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. As guys that have consistently put forth effort. I almost went as far as to say both of those guys will finish outside QB1 status, but I couldn't get there because they just have too many weapons.
Because Baker's, and Jared.
Even if we do say, hey, Detroit might take a step back, or Tampa Bay, still fighting for their lives at 9-8, you're still in a lot of trailing situations with great receiving core to salvage in bad games to still have the 300 yards and a couple touchdowns to get you there.
Of course. And he is rushing up. So Baker is rushing up.
But regardless, I just think a lot of people are pushing up Chicago skill players, pushing up Jacksonville skill players, and it's just like the quarterbacks are staying in place.
Need to correlate a little bit, yeah.
Why are we saying that Travis Hunter and this slot snap percentage ratio with Liam Cohen and how great that is from a fantasy relevance, and then also having BTJ having the 10 touchdowns and 1,200 plus yards, having both of those 2 together should put Trevor to be in the fringe QB1 discussion, but he's like QB 18. Caleb Williams added 2 different skill position players, and then the biggest move is just having a capable offensive coordinator in mind. And there was a lot of memes and tweets about how he was struggling in camp or processing. Chicago's defense is pretty solid.
Yeah.
So that it's not like he's just playing against Cincinnati's defense every practice and he's just going to have highlights. But also, I just think he was basically just trying to feed Caleb with a fire hose.
Yeah.
And then essentially be like, okay, this is what you're good at, or this is what you like. And then you saw that in the second preseason game where he literally just drove down on Buffalo starters with ease.
Yeah. Hold on tight. Basically.
And that wasn't even with significant contributions. That was basically all tight end and wide receiver 3s.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really all in on Chicago in general this year, and then with Jacksonville, I think the AFC South is pretty much wide open, and I could see any of the four having an argument to win the division. I think only one gets to the postseason,
Yeah,
and
agreed.
Jacksonville, I just think had the path in my eyes for this pick to go through.
Well, I think that your take on I think they're playing in completely different divisions. Obviously, you have the NFC North, which is a very tough division. You have the NFC or AFC South, which is a much easier division. Might be one of the worst, and if not the worst. You still have the NFC South, but whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that it's a really good take. I'm right there with you. I'm probably pushback, but at the same time, like I could see it happening because we believe in the talent. We just haven't seen them do it yet. So it's not like the talent's not there, and I'm just like, hey, they can't do this because they're not good enough. It's like Brock Purdy. I don't think Brock Purdy is talented enough without Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings and all these injuries on his team, and then having a O line that's going to depreciate after now that he has 42 million. It's more so these guys have the talent. Now we just need to see them put it together because they haven't yet.
I mean, it's just they're on paper just as good, but it's just funny to me because Caleb was just the universally recognized number one quarterback in a historically, or not historically, but 6
very
quarterbacks
solid.
In the first round.
Yeah, very
and
solid
all
class.
of them so far showing flashes, which you don't really see that often. But already discussions of who would you rather have, Drake May or Caleb, or Bo Nix or Caleb, and the majority is saying the other guy. And it's just like, y'all have such short-term memories on how
he was, how good he was.
I can't just say somebody at their worst, which was 20 touchdowns and 6 picks. That was his worst. Okay, I'll take that instead of and be on the opposite side somehow of public perception.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that is our 8. I actually almost made one with all 6 of the quarterbacks from last year's class. You talked about the wide receivers. I almost made one with the whole group because obviously I have Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos doing well. Mm-hmm. I believe in Caleb Williams and the Bears. I believe in I believe in Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy, who were the lowest of the group, but they were still higher if you just looked at our rankings than Cam Ward. Mm-hmm. So I believe in all 6 of those guys: Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I almost made one for all of them, but I didn't. I wish I would have now, honestly, because we just had this conversation. But I love bold predictions because really, at the end of the day, we're bad. Like these are plus like 2,000 vote. What was
your Triple Crown last year for Jamar? It was like 22 to 1 or something like that.
It was crazy. Yeah, I don't even remember, but it was crazy. And if I would have bet it, I didn't bet it because you don't get sports books that actually allow you to parlay stuff like that.
And we're also in Texas.
And we're in Texas, but it's like. That would have been such an awesome bet to go through because we were absolutely right. 1,700 yards receiving, over 120 receptions, 17 touchdowns. Like, dude went off, and so hopefully we hit some of these. I think I'm really excited about the 5,000 yard running backs. Like that one is really exciting to me because I think we're just going to have a historical year, just like we had receivers last year.
No, I know, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please let us know what your thoughts are on our bold predictions because obviously we are out there with some of ours, but we want to hear what your bold take is. And I'm not saying, hey, this high scoring offense is going to be high scoring again. Like, give us a take that's just like, this hasn't happened in a long time, or nobody expects this thing to happen that is going to happen. Like, who is that come out of nowhere team? Who is that come out of nowhere player? We'd love to hear your thoughts and kind of interact with you guys on this fun topic.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We have a bunch of stuff coming out, of course. We will not be doing any more college football stuff. So if you want to go check out those videos, those are already done. We released our top 25 video on over the last weekend. From here on, we're going to be talking NFL football. A lot of not necessarily fantasy, but a lot of like record predictions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're going to be doing power rankings and stuff like that. So that's all coming up. I know that's everybody's favorite. That power ranking video always gets a lot of love. So please keep liking. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't before. And we appreciate y'all. So we'll see y'all on the next one.
Later, y'all.